What is up, freaks? Welcome back to Rabbit Hole Recap. A day late. Sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties yesterday. Matt is in a remote location, living his best life. We're here, though. Early Friday morning rip. Let's end the week on a good note. Matt, are we going to get overly emotional today? Is that what we're here to do?
No, we're going to have a nice, quiet, level-headed conversation with minimal emotions and just a very monotone hour and a half. Maybe we'll target.
I think we can definitely do that. So we're going to drop into our NPR voices today. We're going to keep our quiet tone. We're not going to get too toxic, if you will. We're just here to talk about Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer distributed cash system, on a Friday afternoon in June. A lot going on this week, Matthew. What are you most excited about right now?
Well, so, I'm going to have to lean on you a bit here because I took a step back from the internet, Bitcoin, Twitter for the last week. I've just been enjoying nature, which has been really good for the soul. I know there's been a lot of panic on the streets, which is kind of what I love. It's like my favorite time in the space is when just everyone is losing their shit and there's bears everywhere. It very much does feel like Stacker's paradise right now. Haters out in full force. I check Twitter. I've been checking Twitter, like trying to keep it down to once a day. Just trying to keep my phone use to a minimum. And every time I check, it's just like my notifications are just filled with absolute haters, which is usually bullish as fuck. And you just love to see it.
Yeah. Water go down the wrong pipe. Crazy buy signals, in my opinion. When everybody's just hate on Bitcoin. Kramer's selling it. He's like, I'm into Ethereum now. I'm into China Bitcoin. It's like this is like stacking opportunity. Alarm bells are going off all over the place in my mind as well.
Kramer panic selling on Tether FUD and Chinese Bitcoin banning FUD is the most mainstream eternal September we've ever had. Like this is almost exactly the kind of FUD that wrecked people last cycle, but this time is coming from like a mainstream finance talking head who has a Bitcoin podcast every morning. So it's pretty unreal to watch. I think a lot of us that kind of expected this phenomenon to happen, but to actually watch it happen in real time is a little bit unreal, right?
Yeah. A lot going on. Bitcoin is, I wrote about it in the Bent last night. For some reason, I watched a lot of CNBC this week, and it's crazy. I focused on ESG and their coverage of ESG, but they've been talking about Bitcoin at least once every 20 minutes on every show. At least.
It's basically the most watched Bitcoin podcast network in the world now. Like that's what CNBC has become. They've just become another Bitcoin show.
Yeah, but it's a pretty Bitcoin show. They have.
Well, look, most Bitcoin shows are filled with shitcoiners. This is a prolific thing that's happened. It always happens. When we started this show, I think the Bitcoin only landscape was very small. It's been fantastic to watch how much it's exploded, and there's just so much Bitcoin only content available. But historically, the majority of Bitcoin content was intermixed with tons of shitcoin content. And that's what CNBC is, right? It's just they have shitcoin equities and, shitcoin fiat that they're talking about all the time and shitcoin bonds that they're talking about all the time. But it's the same kind of concept, right?
Yeah. They had Katie Hahn from Anderson Horowitz. They were parading her around yesterday, the woman who persecuted Ross Ulbricht, and she was shilling NFTs and all that bullshit. And Anderson Horowitz, new $2.2 billion fund. You hate to see. And she was being paraded around as like an expert, like industry leader. Made me sick to my stomach. But before we get into everything, let's get to the dashboard.
Well, before we get to the dashboard, Marty, I just want to say you're looking a lot better today than you did yesterday. Do you want to talk to the freaks a little bit about what you've gone through the last week?
Yeah, I just have a bit of an illness, getting back on my feet and feeling good. Feeling good. Knocked on my ass for a few days there. Um, I was
COVID, right?
scared to put me on the spot. Yeah,
Of
yeah.
course, I'm gonna put you on the spot. We've been talking about it all fucking year.
I got the vid, um, and yeah, been recovering from it. Ivermectin, it works. Uh, really turned my life around within a couple of hours. So yeah, I think I caught it down in Miami during the conference and it lagged a little bit. It didn't catch me till really like Sunday morning of this week. Knocked me on my ass for a few days. Got my hands on some ivermectin and feeling a lot better now. So there are treatments out there. I highly recommend ivermectin if any of you guys get it. The sooner the better. But it is not easy to get. I did have to like haggle a couple pharmacies to actually fill a prescription of ivermectin.
Was it a prescription or it wasn't over the counter?
Yeah, it was a prescription.
Well, you look visibly better than yesterday, so I'm glad you're on the up.
Thank you. No, I think the content's gonna shine through today. According to Clark's dashboard, the price of Bitcoin is $33,085. One cuck buck's going to get you 3,023 sats. It's the most sats you've been able to get with the cuck back on RHR in some time. We are block height 688,795. The next difficulty adjustment is in 677 blocks, estimated to be on July 1st, 2021, and it is going to be a negative 21% difficulty adjustment as of right now. It's because blocks are coming in at 12 minutes and 39 seconds on average since the last retarget. That is due, obviously, because of the great Chinese mining exodus that is going on right now. There are 15,176 transactions in Clark's mempool. Transaction fees not that high. And there, drop from when we recorded yesterday, but not a precipitous drop. Samurai unspent capacity whirlpool is 2,995.39 BTC.
We were popped over 3K for a little bit there.
Yeah, back under. Yeah, so where should we start? You want to start with the Chinese migration? You want to start with
3,000 Bitcoin in post whirlpool UTXOs, and the haters would have you believe that no one uses that shit. That's that's a lot of fucking Bitcoin. Could it be more? Yeah, sure. Well, let's make it higher.
Yeah. Start whirlpooling, freaks. Get your Ronin dojos set up. Get the sats in there. Be conscious of fees. All that good stuff.
Well, Marty, the mempools are never going to have a backlog, so we don't have to worry about fees. It'll just be one sat per byte forever.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. Do you think it really is crazy that the mempool like clearing so aggressively now could be because blockchain.info upgraded to SegWit finally? Like, do you think that's it?
I think most people are using custodial regulated platforms and they're not withdrawing from exchanges. And if they do withdraw from exchanges, they're sending it to a custodial regulated wallet.
What custodial regulated wallet?
Well, like, Anchorage and Coinbase custody and what?
It's a fact that like blockchain.info is like the most used wallet, right?
Sure. The bulls, the on-chain bulls would have you believe that it's a combination of SegWit, which has a lower fee burden based on the weighting mechanism, the SegWit addresses, and Lightning, Lightning is inherently a batch transaction. And then also more efficient use by exchanges of batch transactions, native on-chain batch transactions, ideally with SegWit to reduce their block space burden. Sure, those all contribute to it. But I think ultimately, most people that are getting onboarded right now are not taking custody of their own keys. And they don't have an on-chain role, that presence, right?
Freaks, if you're new, go through the process, start learning how to take possession of your own keys. And like I said, we talked about this last week or a couple of weeks ago. There's definitely a lag though, like a 6 to 7 month lag period of first purchase on a custodial exchange to, all right, maybe I should take control of my keys. Not everybody goes through it, but certainly a percentage of the funnel does.
Oh, 100%. Uh, I think it's even longer than that for most people. And I'm not trying to blame the freaks. I think the freaks are, I think our people are the exception to that rule for the most part.
Yes.
Um, but I think it's awfully convenient, and I'm extremely bullish. I'm always fucking bullish. So don't accuse me of being a fucking bear about it. But I think it's easy to get into this like lazy excuse making where you're just like, oh, it's all rosy and stuff. Like, I think in practice, I expected more people to be consuming block space at this point in Bitcoin's history than are currently doing so. And I think most of that is because of these custodial services and exchanges. If you want to go get your 6% interest on BlockFi and use your favorite influencer's Reflink to do it, you're leaving the chain and you're going over to BlockFi, right? And you're going to give them custody of your coins, and they're going to go and they're going to mix it in with Gemini's wallets and lend it out and do all this other fucking shit. And you're not going to see that on chain, right?
Yeah. Um, Speaking of that and custodial wallets, let's just segue right into something that happened overnight that we didn't get to talk about yesterday when we tried to record first. The El Salvador wallet, Chizo, I think is the government issued wallet that they're giving to the citizens and airdropping $30 worth of Bitcoin. And what are your thoughts on this? Uh, I'm not a big fan of it off the bat. What are your thoughts?
I haven't really. He announced it yesterday, I believe,
Yeah, I gave like a
and
presentation.
it was a fully Spanish presentation, which is fair. That is their language. Um,
What would you expect him to speak to the country of El Salvador in English?
no, my point is that I don't really understand the specifics of that wallet. Are you aware of, like, is it forked from an open source wallet? I assume it's completely custodial. One of the aspects I saw is that you can seamlessly switch between US dollars and Bitcoin. So to me, in my head, what I think is, like a white label version of Strike for a country, but I'm not sure. Are you aware of if it forked from a project, or if it's open source, or if it's custodial or non-custodial, or any of the important specifics?
I'm not aware. I think you do have to register for it. I think you have to tie your identity to it. Obviously, um, I'm not aware if it's forked from anything. They use the help of Strike. Camilla Campton is saying in the show, excuse me, in the
Live
comments
chat.
live chat. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
She
Hopefully,
said it definitely has KYC.
yeah, it's Chivo, not Chizo.
Yeah,
Um,
Chivo, Chivo.
yeah. Um, so yeah,
I think this is kind of what you would expect in this type of situation, is that you'd have a custodial KYC wallet that allows people to move in and out of fiat and Bitcoin. And you give that to people as like a base level, if they need to accept Bitcoin as a merchant and they have no experience or know what they're doing. And specifically with, we have critics who say uh, that the legal tender bill says, you have to accept Bitcoin if you have the means to do it. And this kind of wallet allows people to basically just accept Bitcoin as digital dollars. Um, if you saw a government move to ban cash and remove cash and move you on to a completely digitized system, this is exactly what you would see without Bitcoin, right? Where you'd have a custodial KYC platform that they have complete control. I don't think it solves any kind of the unbanked issues. The whole reason people are unbanked is because of regulatory cost and regulatory burden, and being able to identify people and push them through KYC systems. The nice thing, though, is that you have that which is not a great setup, but it is what it is, and it's kind of what we'd expect, especially in the introductory periods. But you also have this open monetary network in Bitcoin that ideally, I assume that wallet can, I hope that that wallet can pay a Lightning invoice and receive from other Lightning wallets, right? And as long as it connects into that open system, then users and citizens will have a choice to use a non KYC, non custodial alternative.
Yeah,
Or, yeah.
yeah. No, I think the important thing is that users don't have to use this wallet to use Bitcoin within El Salvador. They can use non-custodial open source software as well. I believe. I think this is just the government trying to provide a service. If you want to get to $30 that they're giving out, I think you have to download Chivo and do the KYC and all that good stuff, but or all that crummy stuff. But yeah, I mean they're rolling this out pretty quickly. Was it announced 3 weeks ago? They've already got a wallet being launched, and they're giving out $30 to
Worth of Bitcoin,
worth of Bitcoin. Yeah,
which I guess they can instantly convert if they want to,
yeah,
which is a common tactic to just encourage people to install an app or something. I do, want to push back a little bit, right? Is like this kind of app is going to be very good for financial surveillance, right? So it would be nice to see, maybe in the beginning, a higher percentage of El Salvadorians will use this app for Bitcoin, but will move to more private alternatives. I hope to see that. That's something I think we should watch. I think on the flip side, if you have like a popular mobile wallet or custodial wallet that has a lot of private information, that could be logging a lot of private information, whether that's IP addresses or on-chain addresses or Lightning transactions if it's a custodial wallet, and then it gets purchased by a KYC regulated company, you could have a lot of the similar issues, and it could happen in a situation where the user isn't even aware that it's going to be connected to KYC records in the future. So at least here, it's already, it should be more visible to the user, I assume, because they're going to come in and they're going to have to provide their ID and stuff, than if something flips to KYC after the fact, which I expect us to see more of in the future. So in either regard, we really just want users to hold their own keys, not use custodial services, and ideally use wallets that use their own node or use a friend's node so that they're not leaking all this network level information, IP addresses, stuff like that, to Lightning transactions to a centralized provider.
yep. We need more TO gyms in El Salvador, getting people set up with nodes and helping people get connected to their node. Tio is uncle in Spanish. If you didn't understand that, Matt.
I mean, I'm very aware. I speak decent Spanish. I can understand Spanish. I speak it better when I'm drunk.
I do as well. I do as well. I do a lot of things better when I'm drunk. Are you drinking on this episode today?
No, I'm in the Eastern time zone, so it is in the morning right now.
I understand you've been drinking a lot of rum this week.
I have been.
How's that? How's that for a drunk? A rum drunk?
It's very summery.
Have you been singing a lot?
No.
No. Okay. All right. Well, next topic: Chinese migration. It's happening, as I alluded to while on the dashboard. Hash rate's fallen pretty significantly. Blocks are coming in around 12 minutes and 40 seconds on average. Looks like China's finally cracking down. The Bitmain had a big VIP conference last weekend in which they were letting their big clients know where they may be able to end up in the U.S. specifically. And Kevin Zhang from Foundry Services shared a slide from that presentation, which highlighted over 10 gigawatts of capacity in the U.S. By 2022. I'm a bit skeptical that that's going to be able to be fulfilled within quick order. capacity in the U.S. is already pretty tight for North American miners alone, but then taking on an influx of the largest part of the mining industry on top of that over the next 2 years seems a bit wishful, if you will. So I think this migration is definitely happening. Miners are definitely unplugged. They're definitely either sitting in warehouses en route to places that did have capacity. But I think a lot of these miners are going to sit on the sidelines for a bit, just because the generation capacity needed to fulfill that demand needs to be built out, and that takes time, 9 to 18 months at the earliest in a lot of places. And when you consider the amount of pure hash rate that's looking for new homes, I think it's going to take quite a while for all those Chinese miners to find homes. But looks like it is real this time, Matt. My Chinese mining sources seem to have confirmed.
Reliable sources in China.
Hey, they turned out to be reliable this time.
Well, I mean, look, I said a couple weeks ago or a month ago that what I wanted to see was some, more verifiable proof that this kind of crackdown is happening, because we've seen time and time again that you cannot really believe anything that's coming out of China, and everyone has a book to sell you. Um, I don't think it's a coincidence that the overwhelming majority of accounts talking about the end of mining in China are American miners, but we'll leave that for another day. Um, I, I'm very surprised if this is actually the case, if this is actually what the Chinese government is doing. If you wanted to have more control over Bitcoin, it'd be better to identify and regulate and control the miners within your borders rather than kicking them out of your borders and letting them leave with their machines. So if that is the case, I think it'll go down as one of the biggest blunders in CCP's history. That's not to say they don't make mistakes. So maybe they are making that mistake. I clearly there's a ton of hash moving out of China. I wonder what the magnitude of that is, because I've seen some reports that say like 90% of all hash rate in China is going to be out of the country within the next month or so. Usually when you see numbers that high about anything, it's
Yeah,
kind of filled with bullshit.
yeah. I don't think 90% is the right number. My Chinese mining sources have told me that there are many like under the radar operations that are still up and running. And yeah, so this really attacked the bigger operations. I think last year there was an initiative to have the big mining farms officially register with the government. And I believe a lot of them went along with that and went through the proper registration. And I think those were the main ones targeted this time around too. So the ones that actually went, did all the paperwork and
KYC.
yeah, the KYC.
It's almost like the first step is you KYC your targets, and then after you have them under your thumb, you fucking push.
Yeah. And so that it's a shame, right? They tried to comply and like be within the books and actually turned out came to backfire on them getting forced out. And it's a real shame, right? Like we've said this many times on the podcast, like the Chinese mining industry is arguably the most ruthlessly competitive part of the Bitcoin industry to date, the first 12 and a half years, right? Like they've innovated, they're ruthless, they're like very capitalistic. It's just ironic being in China that you have this crazy capitalistic industry in the Bitcoin mining industry, whether it be the actual mining of the Bitcoin or the creation of the ASICs and the computers that make it go round. And it's, yeah, I've seen videos of actual Chinese miner citizens leaving China being like, all right, if we can't do this here, I'm leaving. And so
We also
apparently,
saw videos of people just collapsing from COVID in the middle of Chinese streets this time last year. So We've also seen videos that have been just constantly from other, storms and shit that happened that they're like, oh, the Chinese miners just got flooded and all the machines broke and stuff.
This is a bit different though, right? Like,
I don't know, Marty. All I can say is to distill what my point is, I guess, um, is that no one should be surprised if authoritarian governments try and stop their people from using freedom money and try to actively fight Bitcoin. Um, if this is the tactic, just kicking out miners and letting them leave with their hash power, um, we dodged a bullet. That is fantastic. That is best case scenario. If the Chinese want to attack Bitcoin by kicking out hash rate and letting it leave their borders and from where they can control it, if the U.S. government wants to do that, that'd be fantastic. That would be the best way, the worst way for them to attack Bitcoin, but the best way for us. So we'll see how it plays out.
yeah, I think it's going to be an epic blunder. We mentioned this yesterday when we spoke, but like it seems throughout history that China's always had been on the cusp of being able to take the stance of like a great superpower. Um, and maybe we'll look back decades from now if Bitcoin is as successful as we believe it should be and will be. Uh, China making this move, just especially considering how much hash rate had within its borders and how much um, good things it had going for it in the Bitcoin world. Um, this move may be looked at as just a complete shot in the foot, and setting it back decades, if not centuries, because they just did not like that there was a free peer-to-peer distributed cash system within their borders. And yeah, so like a couple of the reasons that people are throwing out there for the abrupt uh, kick out of the miners, capital flows. Obviously, mining allows you to take your yuan, buy electricity with it, produce Bitcoin, and then send that Bitcoin wherever you want in the world. You can skirt capital controls. Um, and secondarily, or not secondarily, probably primarily, it seems that the Chinese grid system is becoming better connected. They're better able to um, transfer electricity to Chinese citizens. And so, with the increased interconnectedness of the electricity grid, Bitcoin miners started directly competing more with Chinese consumers for electricity, and that this became politically untenable. And so, and Chinese government said, "Hey, the citizens need this electricity. We need you to get the hell out." And so, with that being said, that should be a lesson to everybody throughout the world that's taking in some of these miners as well. These political risk on the grid exist where you live too. When push comes to shove, if Bitcoin miners are consuming electricity and competing with local consumers, the local consumers are going to get priority over Bitcoin mining. And so this does not preclude miners in the United States or anywhere else that are mining on grid from getting kicked off because of political reasons as well. So be aware of that. Think off grid. I think that's the future of mining throughout the world, not only in the US or anywhere particularly.
I mean, I think on a long enough time scale, mining has the opposite of what people usually see, which is it has diseconomies of scale, where I think, twofold, basically, you're able to get cheaper energy in smaller amounts. The cheapest energy, you're not going to be able to necessarily have a huge, massive warehouse to do it. And the second thing um, is what you just kind of described, which is this regulatory burden, this regulatory risk that you face if you're a larger operation, specifically if you're a larger operation on grid. I expect smaller operations that are not only professional off-grid operations, but also smaller operations that maybe are, subsidizing heat for boilers and hot water and stuff like that, and smaller and home miners, right? Stuff like we see with our buddy Econo Alchemist or Diverter, where they have, or Neil Ronan Miner, where you have, 10 to 12 miners in your house or in your shed or something on your property, and maybe you're willing to mine at a little bit of a loss because you have KYC free coins. The main thing that has been pushing that away from reality so far has been that the ASIC life cycle hasn't been that long, but we're already seeing that start to extend with the S9s. I mean, the S9s have been profitable for half a
six
decade or something now, right? Like,
6 years, some of them, yeah.
that's insane, right? So that's exactly what you want to see, because if you do like one of these small level operations, you don't want to see your hardware just go out of, become obsolete within 6 months, 7 months. And then because the bigger companies always have an easier job sourcing the new hardware. So having that older hardware last longer and longer, I think really just helps distribute hash rate, and we'll see it go to smaller operations around the world. And right now we're kind of in this like muddy transition period, and that's why, like, China's, if everything we're hearing is to be believed, the CCP is making a massive mistake here, and basically pushing us past that point of no return, where we go to a world where, no specific jurisdiction or country or region in the world will have more than, let's say, 30% of the hash.
Yeah. Thank you, CCP. Thank you, G, for the assist. Are they really that? That's like, this is where, like, now I like try to put my Chinese 4D chess hat on. Are they really that dumb to let this happen like this? What do you
Guess
think?
we'll see. They
Yeah.
don't, they're pretty they've had pretty effective policy in other regards, in terms of their influence and expansion around the world. So
So how? Yeah, like how could this be? How could this? I don't want to say backfire, but like, what could the long con be here? What could the long con be?
the easiest long con is that they're just fucking, that this isn't actually happening, that the majority of the miners are just being put on lists and KYC'd up the kazoo, and they're regulatory capturing them while pushing this narrative to kind of drive down the price of Bitcoin and deflate our sales, which is a narrative they pushed many times in the past, which is just a very simple, China's banning Bitcoin, just create some fear. Um, but in reality, what they're doing is gearing up for a 51% attack. Alternatively, you could just see some basic regulatory capture where they just have their own blacklists and they force their miners to try and not mine those kind of transactions and push up the price of those kind of transactions, specifically privacy preserving transactions. They can also quietly have miners submit all their XPub data and submit all their UTXO data, so that they're building a surveillance system on the side that no one really knows how big their data set is. And they can make it so, if you're a Chinese mining pool and you want to pay out to your individual miners, then all those miners have to be KYC to a subset, something like that.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Um, that is one of the things that people are saying is driving the price lower too. Is a lot of these miners have to pay to move their stuff out of China, so they're having to sell Bitcoin that they would otherwise have held, and that's why we dropped below 30 temporarily earlier this week and are hovering in the low 30s.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy for us to say in the Western world, oh, this is, the 10th time Chinese, banning Bitcoin FUD isn't going to get me. But if you're a rich Chinese miner and you're already on the CCP's radar, like, absolutely you're going to fucking panic, rather than hodl. Of course you're going to try and get some cushion, and protect yourself a bit. Like, that's just natural, and that's why it's been effective in the past. Whenever they announce that there are going to be some kind of restrictions or whatever, it's usually met with panic. I think yesterday or today, Poolin announced that they're stopping payouts on they have these cloud mining tokens where if you hold the token, you get a proportion of that hash rate return. And they just stopped the payouts completely for that, which is another case of, why cloud mining should never be done by anybody. If it's not your machines, it's not, your Bitcoin. Um, but that's them panicking, right? That's them, not sure what the regulatory environment is going to be. So they just cut off maybe they're just using it as an excuse so that they can take the Bitcoin instead of sending it out to customers right now. But
Yeah.
just interesting watching it all play out.
Really is. This is a historic moment in Bitcoin's history. I mean, if it is true, if it is happening, it does seem to be happening at least to a certain degree. Um, Seismic shift in the dynamics of the network, particularly the mining industry. This is a huge opportunity for the mining industry outside of China. I mean, it's been one of the I don't want to say darkest clouds, but it's been one of the heaviest sort of lines of FUD that have been launched against Bitcoin and Bitcoiners is China controls mining, blah 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 blah. Now that's not true. If the migration is really happening and that turns out not to be true anymore, that is really good for Bitcoin if that hash rate gets distributed. I don't want to say equally, but distributed sufficiently across borders, across the rest of the world. So I believe a lot of the Chinese miners are going to Kazakhstan, Europe, obviously the U.S., Canada, Latin America is on people's radars as well. So
go to Volcano Mine.
Yeah, go volcano mine, go use some hydro down in Argentina. Um, I think this is going to be good for Bitcoin in the long run. It's going to make it extremely robust, extremely resilient. And again, it's an opportunity for the rest of the mining industry outside of China to take on some hash rate, scale up, and create a dominant business as we head into the roaring 20s here. So it's an exciting time in the Bitcoin world. And it just shows how incredibly dynamic Bitcoin is. The fact that blocks are still being produced. Yes, it's a little bit slower, but you have a huge disruption of one of the largest parts of the market, literally having to turn off all their machines and move everything on the flip of a switch, the turn of a dime, and it's happening beautifully. It's so crazy to think that Bitcoin is this dynamic. Like you can have this big of a disruption, or quote unquote disruption, and still maintain block production. Yes, it's coming in a bit slower, but we'll have a difficulty adjustment around July 1st and things will get back to normal. It's the beauty
And
of
fees aren't even up, so
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. Bitcoin is incredibly dynamic. It's a beautiful system. Satoshi should get the Nobel Prize in economics. GBDC redemptions hurting Bitcoin demand. This is an article in Bitcoin Magazine by Dylan. This is by Dylan LeClaire.
Yeah, our boy Dylan,
Uh,
BTCization on Twitter.
yeah, essentially diving into the fact that people are redeeming GBTC. Um, and so that the redemptions happen, what, 6 months? It takes 6 months to redeem or whatever. So people are, I guess they started redeeming earlier in the year. Now they're starting to liquidate that. Is that what's happening here?
Um, so I mean, GBTC is something that we've been following on this show for a couple months at least now, specifically the premium versus the negative, which is, GBTC is Grayscale's,
Doesn't look like they're selling. It looks pretty flat.
Custodial product. Um, that trades on like your normal brokerage account or something like that. I mean, I don't think any of the freaks should use it. Commonly, when retail uses it, they use it as a 401k, an easy way into a 401k. But I really think people should hold their own keys and use our boy Vandrew's services and in collaboration with Unchained Capital. They make it very easy for you to still get those tax benefits in your retirement account while holding your own keys. But on the institutional side, a lot of people tend to be preferring it because it's very easy for them to do on a regulatory basis. It's a very low hanging fruit for them. Most of these companies, even someone sophisticated like Michael Saylor, they don't hold their own keys anyway, right? They use a regulated custodian. So Grayscale kind of just handles that for everyone. Now you have two sides of that trade. You had BlockFi basically sending out pitch decks to people trying to get them to arbitrage the premium because it was trading at like a 15-20% premium for a while.
Did they
Um,
did they want them to lever up on BlockFi?
yeah,
So
so they would borrow the Bitcoin from BlockFi and they'd put it through the redemption process, which has a time lock because it's not a proper ETF. And the idea was by the time they got out of that redemption process, they'd be able to get that free money, which is that premium. And um, like most things in life, there's trade-offs and nothing is free. And if it's too good to be true, it's fucking full of shit. And too many people tried to do that at the same time as the price started to come down a little bit. And the thing just fucking turned negative. And it's been trading negative for I'm probably over a month now, I think.
it's long
Um,
that I imagine, right?
yeah, it's for a while, and it concerns me. I don't know exactly, what the concern is completely, but it concerns me because I speculated for a while, even when we had the premium, that it was going to trade at a negative at a discount after ETFs got approved because it's still got that high management fee. It's got that 2% management fee. So inherently it should trade at a discount, but it should trade very close to par. It should level itself out, especially if you think that Barry will be successful in turning it into an ETF. Because if he turns it into an ETF, that redemption process becomes better. The arbitrage window should close and it should come very close to par. And right now it's very below the value it should be at. And no matter how long it's been there, it hasn't come back up. So that to me, and we saw Grayscale they tried all these different techniques. They're like, we're going to buy $250 million on the open market. The thing barely budged, right? Like he's like, he does all these press releases. He's like, we're going to make an ETF. The thing just barely moves. So that concerns me on a separate note. My understanding of what Dylan is saying here is that if you're an institutional investor, you can come in through GBTC and you're able to get that discounted price instead of buying real Bitcoin and holding it yourself. You can get that 12% discount if you just buy GBTC.
Yeah. GBTC, man. Just buy Bitcoin. They're moving fast to turn it into an ETF though, so we'll see how successful they are in that endeavor. I'm getting
If
sick of GBTC talk.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't turn it into an ETF and there's other ETFs that exist, it will forever trade at a large discount
Yeah.
because it's just a worse product. If they do turn it into an ETF and keep their management fee, which by the way, they said we're going to lower our management fee, that still didn't help really reduce the discount. It should still trade at a slight negative to real Bitcoin as participants become aware that they can actually own their own Bitcoin and hold it themselves. Like that, it's a worse product. Custodial Bitcoin should always trade less long term. Someone else is holding your Bitcoin for you.
Yeah. We shall see. I think that discount's going to be there for quite a while. So beware. Yeah. And you had like institutions piling in as well. Um, Welcome to the GBTC trade. The B word.
I hope they all get fucking wrecked.
Yeah.
Teach them a lesson.
The B word
Or party risk.
announced yesterday. Jack and Kathy Wood and the team at Paradigm are teaming up for a one-day conference July 21st of this year. How institutions can embrace Bitcoin. They're trying to demystify Bitcoin and break down why it's important, how it's being leveraged currently, and how it can be leveraged in the future, and really dig into the importance of Bitcoin and its existence on this planet right now. So the Crypto Council for Innovation, which I guess ARC, Square, and Paradigm are leading, are running this. Matt, you will be presenting. What are you presenting on? Dev incentives or Bitcoin and privacy?
Bitcoin ethos and self-custody.
Bang,
I'm
bang.
looking forward to participating.
Bang, bang.
And it looks like Elon and Dorsey are going to have They're going to have what they called as the talk about Bitcoin.
It was like Elon was like, how's that dude a billionaire? It's just like so. You know what? They're gonna have the talk. Jack and Elon are gonna talk it out.
This is all going to be virtual, by the way.
Yeah, it's all virtual. I have faith that Jack will be convincing. Maybe get him maybe get Elon thinking straight. Not gonna hold my breath though.
And my understanding is twofold. So they're going to have like a live event, and then they're going to basically have cut up pieces of content from that event. So they'll have like a library of free content focused on the institutional side people, so that, and just keep building up that content. So there's like a homepage where they can just send people that are working for these big companies, and give them some Bitcoin education for free.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah. No, I love this initiative. Shout out to Jack, Kathy, team at Paradigm. I know Arjun is going to be participating as well. Shout out to Yassine at ARC. Looking forward to that event. Very important work, demystifying, having those strong voices, getting out in front and debunking FUD and helping people to approach Bitcoin in the correct way, not just look at the price, but the freedom enabling aspects of the technology, the peer-to-peer distributed nature of the technology, the how it works, the why it works. This is important. This is important stuff. Can't have just Kramer screaming about the price and people calling it digital gold without combating it. We need voices to get out there and push back. Like, hey, it's not just digital gold. You can do really cool things. You should learn about the Lightning Network. Speaking of the Lightning Network, this is on the list, but Ryan Gentry had some nice stats. All the like met. I know you don't like metric stats, but uh, all the Lightning Network stats are looking pretty healthy right now in terms of like Bitcoin locked in public channels, amount of nodes on the network. I'm looking for this particular tweet right now. Give me a second here. Now my internet's being slow. Here it is. And network capacity, nodes approaching 15,000 nodes on the Lightning Network, channels approaching or above 50,000 channels right now. And Bitcoin locked public nodes is above 1,500 Bitcoin and probably more in private.
Whirlpool's double that.
Whirlpool's double that. Hey, both driving fees. Both driving fees, trying to at least.
Apparently not.
That's
1,500 is in public broadcasting channels, and then you have private channels, which are harder to determine how much is there.
Yeah. You would assume there's probably more private, I would imagine.
There's like probably large private channels between regulated enterprise Lightning routing nodes, like something going between Bitstamp and Strike, or Strike and Bitfinex, or Strike and their like subsidiaries that they have around the world. I kind of don't feel like that is the Lightning Network, right? Like we're basically, what we're gonna have is we're gonna have the main Lightning Network, and then you're gonna have these like private networks that are existing around the sides, kind of, and that interact into the main Lightning Network, which is like where you see all the public channels, and you have sovereign node operators that are running Tor only nodes and have their public channels, broadcasting that anyone can connect to, right? And then you're going to have these professional Lightning nodes that are KYC'd, run by regulated companies, that are going to have restrictions on who can open channels with them. and they're going to have really large private channels as well between their business partners, because they don't want those routing relationships to be broadcast to the world. And then on the other side, for the sovereign users, we'll see private channels for like end users. So like if you open, for instance, like I believe like all the channels that Breeze opens for their users are private channels, right? And those are small $100, $200 channels. And they only need like one or two to like a big routing node in order to access the broader network. So if you subtract that latter type, I don't think really accounts for that much yet. Like I think it will going forward, as there's more end users that are using these mobile first wallets that only have like one or two channels that are all private. I just don't think those users really, in terms of Bitcoin volume, are a very large percentage yet. I think the majority of private channels right now, and this is all intuition, right? Because they are not being publicly broadcast, are between these, these large routing nodes, these like regulated companies.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It would make the most sense right now at this particular time. Like, yeah, it computes. Should we get the shout outs?
Sure.
All right. We got 2 shout outs this week. Hi, Marty and Matt. Listener from Switzerland here. I want to say that you two are awesome. RHR is fantastic. I never miss a show. We love you and your work. Your work is tremendously important for the community and for the world as a whole. The fight is tough, but we will win. Bitcoin will prevail and great peace will come. If you ask me, Bitcoin will swallow it all. The nasty elites, the fiat fraudsters, and anybody who is a traitor to individual freedom. Please keep on doing what you do. We across the pond do our best to spread Bitcoin, to accelerate adoption, and to get people to listen to RHR. Thank you. Europe needs you. The world needs you, because in the end, we're all Americans at heart. Americans in the sense of the founding fathers, Americans in the sense of being born to be free, and Americans in the sense to make the world a wonderful place through hard work, integrity, and love. The orange light will shine upon every single human being. Stay humble and stack sats. Cheers, Dobby. Thank you, Dobby. That was beautiful. Really appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you, Dobby.
Very heartfelt.
I'm gonna go grab a beer.
Whoa. 11:30 beer for Matthew. Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, like we said, we do this as a labor of love. We love doing this. We love coming in week in and week out. We freaks here to talk about Bitcoin. We do this because of you guys. Yeah, it's always crazy to get shout outs like that. Here's the second shout out of the week. If I hear blockchain one more time, ellipsis. Thanks for the great content, Marty and Matt. Much love from a member of the Blockchain Guild at a technology consulting firm. Stay strong, brother. Stay strong. Blockchain Guild. They gave you the guild name at the consulting firm. That must feel good.
This guy works at the Blockchain Guild?
Well, he works at a consulting firm, and he's on the Blockchain Guild team. I guess that's something HR thought would be funny.
It sounds like your consulting firm is short Bitcoin.
It sounds like it's a short consulting firm too, right? A guild. I can't think of anything but like the Lollipop Guild from what is that? The Wizard of Oz.
How about, I don't have this on the list, but A16Z launching a 2 billion plus fund and calling it the crypto fund and not writing the words Bitcoin anywhere in their fucking 4,000 words announcement is the most bullish fucking thing ever.
Yeah.
That is our edge, freaks.
Shocker. Like, I think I mentioned it earlier too. They were like parading Katie Hahn around on CNBC yesterday. You think they're going to invest in any shitcoins?
They already have. They will continue.
Yeah, I know. Hey,
Coinbase is just their dumping grounds for all their shitcoins.
it's the portfolio consolidation company of A16Z. Hey,
It's really amazing. It's really, I mean, I guess you can't expect someone to think differently than what pays them, right? Like they just make so much money off this shit that it's like I wonder what their personal portfolio breakdowns are in terms of Bitcoin versus shitcoins. That's
and
the thing is like the shitcoiners, a shit ton of the shitcoiners have a large portion of their net worth in Bitcoin.
they're not
You do
loyal.
not see the opposite. The opposite is not true.
Yeah, yeah, they're like 90% Bitcoin usually. If you ask any of them, like, oh, I'm still 90% Bitcoin. You never see anybody who's like 100% Ethereum or anything like that.
Not even Vitalik is.
What does that tell you? What does that tell you? We're rolling into the software updates.
Looks
Big
like all the devs heard your call for updates last week. And
back to work, devs. Build, build on. LND version 0.13.0 has been released. Spectre DIY version 1.5.5 has been released. Running that, consider upgrading. Rust Lightning version 0.0.98 has been released. We're going to read some release notes here because it's pretty major. This is what they've been working on at Square Crypto. This Rust Lightning implementation for quite some time, and so this should be considered a release candidate for the first alpha release of Rust Lightning and the broader LDK Lightning Development Kit. It represents several years of work designing and fine-tuning a flexible API for integrating Lightning into any application. LDK should make it easy to build a Lightning node or client which meets specific requirements that other Lightning node software cannot. As Lightning continues to evolve in new use cases for Lightning to develop, the API of LDK will continue to change and expand. However, starting with version 0.1, objects serialized with prior versions will be readable with the latest LDK. So, yeah, it seems that the Rust Lightning implementation is in the wild now, at least in beta. This is something that Square Crypto team met. They said, what do we want to work on? We want to work on Lightning. What do we want to build? We want to build an implementation. We went with the Rust implementation and a Lightning development kit. And looks like the fruits of that labor are being brought to market now. So shout out to the Square Crypto team and everybody else who contributed to that Lightning implementation. Excited to test it out. Looks like we lost Matt here. We'll see if he comes back. I'll just keep rolling with the software updates here. We got Join Market version 0.8.3 has been released. Join Box version 0.5.0 has been released by OpenArms. Blue Wallet version 6.1.6 has been released. You're running Blue Wallet, consider upgrading there. Lightning Terminal version 0.5.0 alpha has been released. Sparrow Wallet version 1.4.2 has been released. And last but not least, Umbrel version 0.3.13 has been released. So if you're running any of that software, consider upgrading. Letting Matt back into the room now. We lost you there, brother. You muted.
I am back.
Thank God. I was worried about you.
I had to restart my computer. Everything just broke over here.
That was pretty quick. It was a pretty quick restart. We just finished the software updates.
Awesome. Bullish as fuck. Appreciate you reading those to the freaks.
Oh, hey, I think they appreciate it too. They know, hey, I have to go download my new software.
What was your favorite software update this week?
I think it was the Rust Lightning. It's just interesting to see them finally get something to market. You know?
Awesome.
What about you?
I don't have the list in front of me, and I'm afraid my computer is going to break down. So,
What's going on with your computer, dude?
I'm excited to see progress on more Lightning implementations. It'd be nice if we didn't. Once again, appreciate all the work of developers out there that are a lot of times doing this stuff for free and doing it for the mission. And I'm not doing that. So I'm not trying to throw stones, but it'd be nice if we had like kind of an existential threat for Lightning short term is if it's just one major implementation. So to see other performant implementations get released and worked on is definitely really good to see.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Moving back to the list, MicroStrategy bought more Bitcoin.
You like that the headline?
What's new? Now they hold over 105,000 coins. It's quite a lot of Bitcoin. Quite a lot of Bitcoin held by MicroStrategy. Just can't stop stacking. Their cost basis on the last buy was 37,617, so they're still underwater on that by about $4,000.
It feels relevant, but I feel like we should just bare minimum talk about it. I'm kind of done with the topic at this point.
Yeah.
Thank God Bitcoin's not proof of stake.
Yeah.
If we ever actually have a major proof of stake cryptocurrency, I look forward to these types of attacks happening on it because it's fucking inevitable. Like, of course, the corporates are going to try and fucking
Well,
and like the ETFs too. Like between GBTC and MicroStrategy and Coinbase,
funny you
they
say that.
hold so much Bitcoin. Thank God we don't have proof of stake.
Did you see what happened to what the the Ethereum staker this week? It was like
What they like sued Fireblocks or something?
yeah, like one of the top 10 stakers of ETH 2.0. I think they had $75 million for the ETH, which is many thousands of ETH. Yeah, they, their custodian didn't didn't back up their seed phrase or their private key. They just completely lost it. So they lost like 10% of stake, or like I think it was like 8.75% of.
I don't know. It like read kind of fishy. The whole thing was just it seemed like the participants of that lawsuit lacked personal responsibility and kind of deserved it, whatever happened there. Like
Agreed.
there's a lot of things we could blame proof of stake for. Uh I think those people would have had fun staying poor even if they were using Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, but what does that do? Like, if you just have all that staked, you don't have the private key. Is it just stake into perpetuity and you can't do
No
anything?
one knows, Marty. No one knows. We've already discussed it too far.
All right. All right. I'm sorry. The British CF, or excuse me, the British FCA is cracking down. They hit 111 unregistered crypto asset firms with, what they hit them with? Subpoenas, fines?
No. They're like shot across the bow.
Yeah, warnings.
So this is very relevant because it's kind of been happening behind the scenes and no one wants to talk about it. So the FCA is the British like rulemaking body or the regulator that Bitcoin companies fall under, and they practically made the UK one of the worst major jurisdictions to launch a Bitcoin company in. The FCA has only approved 5 companies so far. So they just approved the 5th company now, and there's 111. A large portion of that 111 they just called out have been trying to go through this approval process. Like if you think the bit license is bad in New York, the FCA's process is way worse. It's extremely convoluted. It's expensive. There's no clear answers, and it's constantly moving. They're constantly moving the goalposts and attacking these companies even after they've been approved. So what does that mean? What does that mean? That means that we should expect, once again, we should expect most freedom-hating governments to attack freedom money. And they are going to do it from these kind of different bases. And on the short term, that's going to suck for the citizens of those places, especially if you're trying to launch a business that interacts with these things. But ultimately, long term, it should mean that we see these businesses distribute out to better jurisdictions where they're treated properly, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a shame the British do not like freedom anymore, if they ever liked it at all. The FCA cracking down, making it prohibitive to run a Bitcoin company. It's a shame. It's a real shame. Hopefully, it doesn't happen here in the U.S. outside of New York. Speaking of New York, Mayor Frontrunner, he seems to want to make New York a Bitcoin city.
Dude doesn't even know what Bitcoin is. He just was saying buzzwords.
Yeah, he's like, we're gonna bring Bitcoin.
People like don't what people say doesn't matter. What they do matters more.
Yes, yes.
Just judge, I'll believe it when I see it.
What they do, not what they say.
The good thing is at least it's like a positive buzzword talking point now, right? And he could have said blockchain or crypto or digital assets, and he said Bitcoin. I think he specifically said bring Bitcoins to New York, which
Yeah.
it doesn't even make any sense grammatically. But like at least it's a buzzword, I guess. we have that going for us.
We got the buzzword. Bitcoin is a buzzword. Is it a trigger word? I guess that's
I,
a
I
question.
still think the plural of Bitcoin is Bitcoin.
It's Bitcoins.
Yeah, no, we disagree on that. This is one of the important debates of our time. Um, we at least I think we disagree on at least biweekly uh, on how that works.
Yeah, I buy Bitcoins biweekly.
You buy Bitcoin biweekly.
I buy Bitcoins biweekly on the cash. I stack multiple Bitcoins. Just kidding. I wish that would be dope. Um,
I
Iran.
think Sats is plural. Like it's not Sat, it's Sats.
Yeah,
43 million Sats, but 0.43 Bitcoin,
100
or
million,
143 million Sats, but
100 million sats.
1.43 Bitcoin.
100 million sats is one Bitcoin. 200 million sats is two Bitcoins. It's very simple. It's very simple. It's very straightforward, Matt. I don't see how you can.
What is 1.2345 Bitcoin?
It's 100 million.
That's not my point. Not 123 million Sats is 1.23 Bitcoin. 43 million Sats is 0.43 Bitcoin.
No, it'd be one Bitcoin. So it'd be one Bitcoin, 200 or 23 million sats or whatever.
What was that?
It'd be one Bitcoin, 23 million sats. And if you get to like 200, if you get
Yeah,
2.3 for
that's how we're gonna pronounce it.
300, we got to work this out.
The decimals, because of the decimals, it just makes more sense if it's just Bitcoin.
Okay. All right.
And also, it's just better for OPSEC's sakes too, especially in as the price continues to go up.
That's true. Speaking of OPSEC, Iran seized 7,000 Bitcoin miners in an abandoned factory. This page is loading.
We don't know if they're even Bitcoin miners, but I assume they're Bitcoin miners.
Yeah.
They said cryptocurrency computer machines,
Yeah.
computer mining machines.
Tehran Police Chief General Hassan Rami said that 7,000 computer miners were seized in an abandoned factory in the west of the capital city. State News Agency IRNA reported. This was after the state put a 4-month moratorium on mining due to stress on the grid.
What's the plural? What is if you see like 7 deer?
It's deer.
It's not deers. What about like
You're still stuck on. We're talking about Iran.
I caught 20 fish.
Fishes.
Fish. No.
Fish. Yeah.
Sorry. We're talking about Iran.
We're talking about Iran now. Okay. Please. You pull together here. So Iran seized 7,000 machines. Again, they had a 4-month moratorium on mining over the summer due to the stress on the grid. They didn't want miners taking electricity from the grid during peak summer hours. And I guess they were able to identify this abandoned warehouse mining operation using the grid. Again, highlights political risk in mining on the grid. You can easily be identified if you're mining on the grid and you're not registered. So beware.
But it also highlights what you would expect an authoritarian government to do when they're attacking miners is they bag and tag the compliant miners, and then they make an example. Maybe they do a 4-month moratorium, and then they make an example of anyone who's mining and hasn't complied. right? And what do they do at that point? They don't say, "Oh, well, take your miners and go sell them to miners in another nation that we're competing with in every other facet of the world." They actually fucking seize them and take control over them,
And then mine for themselves.
or they, they have a dude who's like connected to the regime, and they have him run the operation, right?
Yeah. And well, they already are effectively forcing the registered miners to mine for them, right? They have to give their Bitcoin to the central bank.
Exactly.
So yeah, if you freaks didn't know that, Iran last year at some point made it so if you're a registered miner, you had to sell your Bitcoins to the central bank. I believe they're going to use that for the sole purpose of purchasing exports. Excuse me, not purchasing exports, purchasing goods from outside the country. So Iran, Bitcoin mining, story grows. More ransomware. Matt wants to make you freaks aware of ransomware. It's not in the mainstream PISA ransomware. This is targeting educational entities in the UK and in 12 states in the United States. Um, not too sophisticated, but just another example of ransomware in the wild. Matt, Matt's got a deck beer. That looks very good as that flying dog.
Flying dog, yeah. Because Marty's Owl in the comments asked what I was drinking, so I was trying to do it in a non. Um, well, there we go. Didn't mean to interrupt you. Continue.
No, I was done. The ransomware.
Oh
Out.
yes. So this is just another ransomware. I've decided that um, with all the talk of ransomware being the next narrative against Bitcoin, every time I find a small little story about some random ransomware, we're going to talk about it in Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah. Let's expect the ransomware heat to heat up. It's
This
coming.
was not in mainstream news or anything. This is like a bleeping computer article about it.
Yeah. Gladstein, our boy Gladstein, had an incredible piece in Bitcoin Magazine yesterday, fighting monetary colonialism with open source code. He dove into the history of basically French colonialism across 15 African nations, and basically the forced currency that these African nations are forced to use by the French, the franc de la communauté financière africaine, or franc of the financial community of Africa. And it just highlights very in a very detailed fashion the ways in which colonialism still exists and the ways in which the French government is basically manipulating the currencies of the African nations that it has this weird control over, debasing the currency overnight many times over, um, and really putting these African nations at a terrible disadvantage. And he also highlights how Bitcoin can help these nations and be a better alternative than this currency controlled by uh, the French government, which is completely detached from the African continent. So, very illuminating story. Gladstein doing a great thing to put this stuff out bi-weekly. Incredible content, incredibly in-depth, well researched. He does interviews with a couple of Africans on the ground who have lived through this and have been subjected to the debasements of this French currency, and now they are getting into Bitcoin, advocating for Bitcoin as well. So beautiful to see.
Yeah, I love that our boy Gladstein has been, releasing these posts every 2 weeks, focused on the ills of fiat currency, basically, because people don't ask what the history of their money is and how their money has been used by centralized actors to influence policy decisions and make people's lives worse in a lot of ways. And he kind of just pulls that argument, instead of being, Bitcoin's bad, to let's have a discussion about your existing money, the money that you just take for granted, that you just expect. Um, just really quick, Marty, what is the plural of ransomware?
Ransomwares.
It's definitely ransomware.
It's ransomwares.
I agree to disagree. You're gonna
Uh,
die on this hill, Marty?
maybe. Maybe this is the hill I die on. It's not going to be BitCloud. It's going to be Bitcoins. Shout out to Gladstein.
He's
Uh,
the he's a real one.
he really is. Last but not least on the list, Peter McCormick interviewed President Bukele of El Salvador. Very, very great interview. Eloquent. President Bukele was very eloquent in his reasoning behind Bitcoin, why he believes it's important, why he feels confident to have El Salvador go out and put their neck out and champion Bitcoin. So if you guys haven't gone to listen to that or watch it yet, go do so. Learn about the first nation state to make a Bitcoin legal tender.
First sitting president to go on a Bitcoin podcast if you don't include CNBC.
Yeah. Yeah.
That seems big to me. That's the big headline. Boom.
CNBC got front ran too. It was beautiful to see. Whew. Have anything to riff on here? This is good. This is so much better than yesterday. I'm happy we recorded this.
Yesterday, I was like, I tried to go to the top of this cabin, and I was just doing it on my cell phone speakerphone on. Marty was in bed. It was we love you, freaks. We'll ride or die. We'll be here every week. It's been 3 years every fucking week. Can't stay away. You guys make it worth it. I had, what was it? Cypherpunkpay.org. Is a new BTC Pay alternative that a freak sent me that he's been working on that I have not tested out yet, but the idea is to be more lightweight and has a bit of a different trust model. You don't have to use your own node. It randomly uses blockchain explorers, different Bitcoin explorers, and it uses different Tor circuits for it. So it does it in a relatively private fashion without using your own full node, kind of geared towards being more accessible for activists to accept donations, which is one of the use cases we've been talking about a lot on this show. I have not tested it out myself or looked at the code in any kind of way, but this is like a call to the freaks who are interested in that type of thing, which I think there's many of us that are, to look into it because it does seem like an interesting project.
Cypherpunk Pay is a modern self-hosted software for accepting Bitcoin on ClearNet and Onion websites. Project prioritizes simplicity and privacy, being a single Linux daemon. It is easy to install with no dependencies and near zero configuration. It will run fine on a $5 VPS. Boom. One thing I want to bring up too is something I wrote about the Ben earlier this week, article in Recode highlighting two things that I'd like to talk about. One, the stress on the Texas grid and ERCOT, and two, spyware. Apparently, there was a program in Texas with some of the energy companies. If users signed up, they basically hooked them in with the chance to win $5,000 off of their energy bills over the course of a year. And so people obviously signed up, hey, get $5,000 off. But they didn't realize, I guess, in the fine print, it said if you sign up for this, we can manipulate your thermostat remotely. And so during the heat wave last week, apparently a bunch of people started noticing that their Nest thermostats were up to like 78 degrees and they couldn't change them. And that was because they basically signed away the rights of the control of their thermostat to the energy companies. And when the grid got stressed out last week, the energy company went to these people who signed up for this program and turned up their heat to reduce the load on the grid. So it just highlights the fragility of the grid in Texas, which is still mind blowing. And then the power you give up with these spyware devices. So throw your Nest out, throw your Alexa out, your Google Home, whatever it is. Get them out of your house. They're just attack vectors.
You correctly pluralize spyware. I think we're going to see more and more of this surveillance capitalism. People opting into it, giving up control of things that they've historically controlled locally for more convenience and easier costs. It's going to get worse and worse. And then more people are going to get burned. And as people get burned, as their friends and family get burned, as they read on the news about other people get burned, but especially as they get burned themselves and they touch the stove themselves, they're going to start to realize why it's important for us to take sovereignty over our lives again, specifically in the digital realm, which is growing, a larger part of our lives every day. And at that point, we really need to have the platforms and the tools available for people so that they can opt into the more sovereign option. And I think that it's a lot more productive getting that ready for when people are ready rather than trying to push people to be ready when they're not ready yet. I think when people sense a need, they will seek out the better alternative, and we need to be ready for them in that situation.
Agreed. Agreed. So crazy. They can just, it's so creepy. Fucking in the middle of a heat wave. Sweat
I
bullets.
mean,
And you go to,
yeah, that is that. But one thing is when it comes to electric and gas, we, especially if you're in a developed part of the world, we've kind of already ceded control to centralized options. Like we see, that's what rolling blackouts are, right? Like rolling blackouts are a centralized company. The grid operator is trying to ease portions of the grid, so they'll roll blackouts in certain areas and keep on the lights in other areas and switch. What really scares me is like the Ring cameras getting normalized.
yeah.
Because doorbells were never a centralized fucking third party. And now people are completely fine with every single person going in and out of your house is just going to an Amazon server somewhere and like 5 other servers. Like that's fucking crazy to me.
Going to the cops.
What was that?
Going to the police too. Like they
Yeah.
have like a partnership with police departments.
And it's technically opt in, but like you're peer pressured into doing it because you don't want to be the neighbor who's like, what are you doing? What are you doing over there? Like you're not opting into the thing. So you have this like social peer pressure. And then like on top of it, it's, I go over to a friend's house or whatever, and I'm like, why are you exposing this to me?
Right.
It's super frustrating.
It is.
It's only going to get worse, and then it'll get better. There'll be some major hacks. There'll be some major issues that come up.
Well, there is already, like, people's thermostats are getting manipulated. We've had like the instances of people's children being spied on remotely and like talked to through like the the rings. Like, it's already very creepy. Get it together. Get it together. We need to get it together. We need like Start Nine Labs. Matt Hill, when he was on, was talking about building a sovereign closed loop security system. We need that to get out there. I cannot wait to pick that up once it gets to market. We can't end it without talking about John McAfee, sir. Never ate his dick.
I really don't think he killed himself.
He didn't. He didn't.
Maybe he OD'd. Maybe he overdosed, but I don't think he killed himself.
He was getting that good smack in prison.
I'm not going to pretend he was like a legend or a king. Like people are like, God, cheers to a real one. Like dude was a fucking scammer and he was an asshole. But he lived life by his own rules. And I do not think that he was the type that would kill himself. So.
Neither do I. Which begs the question.
I don't really think he had that much dirt. If that's the question.
There's a lot of Epstein theories going out there.
I mean, he pissed off a lot of people. I think it's a very different case. I just don't. Yeah, I think the default should be that if someone tells you that someone committed suicide, you should just assume they didn't first. And like that goes with me as well. Like I will never commit suicide. Like you should be inherently skeptical if that is what they say.
I love life. I've got a son. I'll never commit suicide. Okay.
We have someone in the comments mentioning this. Like I'm not giving any more time to the asshole who refuses to take personal responsibility. And I just want to say I'm still a bit disappointed that more public people, more public Bitcoiners didn't stand the fuck up here, because I think, frankly, it's pretty obvious what the fuck happened. And I've said my piece already, and that's it.
Yeah, we don't need to waste any breath on that. I mean, it is write less. I guess that's all I would say. Real shame. Very quick fall.
I mean,
Uh,
people act like this is a rare thing. Happens all the time.
yeah, people get too hot, too
It's the
hot.
common. It's the common ending for this type of story.
Yeah, it's almost poetic how predictable it is. How beautiful, how predictable it is. Who's next? Is it
I don't
mid?
know. Let's end it on a positive note.
Yeah, what should we end it on? It's a beautiful day where I am right now. I might go to the
It's,
beach.
it's a miserable day where I am right now. That's why I'm recording inside.
Uh,
It's foggy and bright. Look at these windows. This is fucking crazy.
what should we end it on? What should we end it on? I'm bullish on Bitcoin, man. I know we're hovering here at 32,000.
Stacker's paradise, man.
There he is, living in a stacker's paradise. Living in a stacker's paradise. It's gonna be a great year, right? Already is a great year.
I'm excited for summer coming into full swing. I feel like this is going to be a fantastic summer. I feel like people are just ready to go
Yeah,
after the last year of nonsense.
the village by the sea is popping right now. Vibes are high. We got the whole. That's why I'm on the back deck. We got the whole family in the house right now. So it's me, my wife, my son, my in-laws, my wife's sister, my brother-in-law, their kids. Packed house.
That's awesome.
Packed house.
Yeah, I think people should just, in this sideways action, there's a tendency for people to go a little bit crazy on the internet, specifically on Twitter, because Twitter's designed to just fucking one-liner at each other. Just take a step back, don't stop stacking, and just like enjoy the little things, and just enjoy your family and enjoy your friends. Because that's life is short. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I've been taking a break from Twitter this week too. It feels good.
We have Bitcoin M Books asking in the comments if we're going to El Zante to Bitcoin Beach anytime soon. We did talk about this last week. We both plan on making our pilgrimage down there at some point. That's what every Bitcoiner is expected to do now, it seems. Marty seems like he wants to broadcast to the world when he'll be doing that. I will not be mentioning it until after I come back, but it is on the list. I would love to go down there.
I will be making it down there as well. Probably not anytime in the next few weeks. I need to get a negative COVID test, I imagine. One of the guys from Barstool actually reached out to me. He wants to go down there and shoot some content potentially in November. And I might meet him down there for that. Do some Barstool content with him. It'd be pretty fun.
I just fucking love what they've been doing down there. I've loved what they've been doing down there before the legal tender thing. I love what they're doing down there now. I love their initiative with Katie Diaz's memorial fund to create an official Olympic center there for the surf team, for the El Salvadorian surf team. Shout out to the dirtbags in Al's Lacrosse's group, his chat. We raised, I believe, over 14 million sats, or 0.14 Bitcoin, for the Katie Diaz Memorial Fund. So that's just awesome to see.
Hell yeah. Shout out to the dirtbags. You scumbags. I don't know why you hang out with Al. He sucks. He's creepy.
Oh, it was 10.4 million sats, 0.104 Bitcoin.
It's the noon bell in my village by the sea. We have a noon bell here. Yeah, beautiful day. Enjoy life. Enjoy this time on this rock that we have. Enjoy Bitcoin. Thankful that we have it at this particular juncture. Speaking of which, like, we just had a very high inflation indicator to the PCE. So that I think it had its highest year-on-year growth ever. So it doesn't seem like inflation's going to stop. Jerome Powell really pussyfooted around the inflation question on Congress. While speaking on Congress uh, last week, there was really no talk of like tapering or anything like that. Like, so it seems like they're going to go full bore ahead. You have Christine Lagarde at the ECB really trying to drill negative interest rates into people's heads. She's like, it's good for people. It's good. It's good. She's like literally gaslighting people with like, no, don't worry. Negative interest rates are good. It's good that I steal your money from you. So yeah, the central bankers are not stopping what they're doing at all. They're going to go full bore ahead. And so thank God Bitcoin exists. We have this sound digital currency, uh, sovereign digital currency in the digital age. Just keep stacking.
Love you, Marty. Love you, freaks. I'll see you all dispatch next week. And RHR, stay humble and stack.
Peace and love.